Salvation radio is clean.
I want to tell you about Texas radio and the Big B.
It was a warm summer night with our song playing on the radio.
So, Al, what was the greatest promotion that you ever did at KFXM or Kathy? What was the one thing you said, wow, this is the one I'll always remember? What comes to mind first?
Beer cans.
The beer can, brilliant. Mike and I were talking about that last night.
What was that?
Well, Kern County is a pretty rough place, and everybody drove in their cars and drank beer and threw the cans out. So the whole ditches were all up and down the street were all littered with beer cans. So one day I said, I think we should clean up the county, clean up Kern County, and pick out all those nasty beer cans. So I said, you bring us all the beer cans you can pick up out on the sides of the road, and every 10th person. So we didn't say which one they were until they got there. Every 10th person would get a stack of like 59 pounds of records or something like that. And they came, and they came, and they came, and we were pile them in the carport, and pretty soon there were just so damn many of them, and they were stealing them from there and taking them to the front too. So I called the fence guy, traded out a fence, and he put the whole carport in it and filled it totally full of beer cans. And I was, of course, trying to tie it to a public service. So the owner of the Cadillac dealership is also the commanding officer of the Salvation Army for Kern County, Gene Weiner. So I called him and I said, Gene, I got an idea for you. I've got like tons and tons and tons of beer cans that I used in a promotion, and I don't know what to do with them. So I thought maybe you'd like to have them and turn them into scrap and take some money for the Salvation Army. He said, yeah, that's a great idea. So he comes out there, and of course, and I said, I want to do it for the Salvation Army. So he comes out in the Salvation of the Army suit with a couple of guys in a couple of big snake body trucks, and they loaded all of those beer cans and got rid of them for me.
Did he know how many in the first place, or was he surprised when he showed up?
Oh, I told him a lot, but I think there's like 300,000 of them. A couple of sides on that. People used to call me and say, what the hell are you doing? You got my kids crazy. They're stealing my beer out of the refrigerator because you want the cans. I mean, like I said, they always piss backwards. And so what happened later on, Weiner told me, I said, well, how'd you make out with the cans? He's quiet. He says, they were worth nothing. We thought they were aluminum, but they weren't. They were all steel at the time. And steel was at a price right now, it was only like 10 cents for 100 pounds. So they were totally worthless. So they cleaned out the carport, had to get rid of the cans. I got the credit for it. And Salvation Army got the money.
You cleaned up Kern County.
Yeah, and then I did it with political signs. You know, people never pack up at the time, they never picked up their political signs after the elections were over.
That's funny.
So I said, I'm ashamed of these people who run for office and they leave those damn signs all over the place and don't even bother to pick them up. So why don't we do it for them? And then they came. All the signs everywhere. I mean, they picked them up. Some of them were permanent signs. Some of them were like that's the small 5-sheet billboard that was smaller billboard that was closer to the ground. Guy called me. He said, "You son of a bitch! You got your people tearing down my signs." And I said, "Well, I didn't. All I wanted was the little ones." He said, "Well, these weren't little ones." And he said, "I want them back." I said, "They're gone." But you know what? I always laugh. It's always so much fun when that stuff happens. Anybody else want to talk?
How about some monkey story? I keep hearing these monkey stories. What's the deal with the monkey?
Well, Al Barnett was working at a pet store until we finally got the tiger. But he used to give me little things for goldfish, and I used to give them away on the air, and that was pretty good. You know, a little nothing to have, but just to have a contest. And eventually, we were going to do some kind of promotion. I can't remember what it was, but he gave us a monkey. He brought a monkey, and we were going to have him in the studio in the cage, and so we could hear him and talk to him, and turn around and have the monkey make noise. So 3 o'clock. It's always 3 o'clock in the morning when crap happened. So some guys, I can't remember who was on the air, but
Bordeaux.
no, it wasn't
Bordeaux.
Bordeaux.
No?
No. He said, Al, yes. Listen, the monkey got out of the cage. I said, the monkey didn't get out of the cage. What's he doing? He said, well, we can't catch him. And I said, how did he get out of the cage? He said he opened it himself. Well, they just got him out to play with him. And so, well, I can't catch him. And he said, he's running all over the studio. He's throwing records all over the place. And he's shitting on the drapes.
I think that was me. That wasn't the monkey.
So I said, just catch him. And I said, drown him in the pool if you have to. Kill that son of a bitch, but get him out of there. About an hour later, he calls back and he says, I can't catch the monkey. I said, go get the guy in the FM and get him to come and help you. So he said, okay. He goes and he gets the guy in the FM. They go chase the monkey some more. And they call me back again. We can't catch the monkey. I said, listen to me now. You're at a hotel. There's somebody at the desk up there. So go to the desk and ask for some blankets and some sheets and a baseball bat if they got it, and just come back and catch that little bastard and kill him if you have to. And so they did, and they finally caught him. But I had to tell them how to do it.
I remember a Cayman story when the news cruiser showed up at the, don't forget we're in a motel, and the guy was supposed to sign on Monday morning, had a little honey over there on Sunday night. Well, there's the Cayman news cruiser parked under the Kfxm sign. And what if somebody would go out and let the air out of the tires? You can be late for his show the next morning. Plus, take a picture of it and send it to Jerry Jolstead. Remember that?
Yeah.
I think it was Chuck Christensen. It wasn't Huckleberry. That's right. It wasn't. Huck must have been on vacation. I used to take Huckleberry out at 9 o'clock in the morning, drink beer with him just to see how much he could. I never had a beer in the morning of my life till then.
So I remember doing a remote at the fairgrounds, and we had a security guy, Doug Ridge, who was a Hell's Angel.
Yeah.
He worked at Kaiser during the day, but he had a big bike and he was the real thing. But he was our security guy. This is before the Rolling Stones and all that whole thing with the Hells Angels. But Al hired him. He used to hang out, come by the window, and we'd invite him inside. He was sort of a hanger-outer. Came in at the fairgrounds. We had a big remote trailer or something pretty dynamic, and one of their guys unplugged the station. There was a plug for power. They got in there and unplugged the station. And I don't know what Doug Ridge did.
It wasn't Doug Ridge. I don't think it was Doug Ridge. There's somebody laughing there.
Somebody went and came in off the air like for a long time.
You know how Doug came about? I hired him to drive the Jaguar XKE we were giving away.
I don't remember that, but that's pretty cool. A Jaguar XKE. I gave away a Corvette at K-Ocean, but I never gave away a Jaguar XKE.
Yeah. So we went everywhere. I mean, it was my big thing to make Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ontario all together because I had special phone lines for there. We opened studios in both those other cities. We did everything to give us the three-city image. And I think I mentioned to you, Dick, that at that time we were under the area a dominant influence for all those three cities. At that time, we were the 10th largest city in the United States, or SMSA, 10th. And so that's how we used to advertise it when we did it. So, so we had him driving that thing. He'd go to Victorville. He'd go everywhere in the High Desert. Then he'd go out to Palm Springs. Then he'd go to Ontario and just everywhere. By the time we got through with that 30 days, I gotta feel sorry for the guy that got the Jaguar. It was trashed. I mean, he had so many miles on it. He had driven it so hard. I don't think it had been worth $100. The guy comes in, he gets the car, and he takes it home, and he calls back. He said, "What the hell did you give me?" And he said this thing was so shot that he couldn't get it fixed. He couldn't drive it. He couldn't do anything. But that never went on the air.
How about the Beatle exclusives? You haven't talked about that. That Jim Conniff, as I recall, Jim Conniff, father, of course, Ray Conniff, the band leader, and there was a fan club in England. And the kid that ran the fan club worked in the Capitol pressing plant. You take it from there, Al.
That's your story. Go ahead.
Well, he would send stuff over. And in addition, there was a label called Parlophone that would always have a couple of extra Beatle cuts on it, not released there, but not here and not on the Capitol albums. So we'd lay on those for a while too and yell, exclusive over the...
In Bakersfield, we used to get a reel-to-reel from the record companies, Beatles exclusives on reel-to-reel.
That kept going in L.A. until it got really nasty with KHJ. That's another story.
I remember we used to go out when the records were played about Kfxm exclusive. Whisper over it and people would get pissed. And you and Boudreaux used to play a lot of tricks. You were a terrible, terrible nightmare.
You just reminded me of a Boudreaux trick.
Yeah.
He would wrap the cap stand of the record player, the turntable, so the music would go a little faster. It was imperceptible, but he'd save a few seconds from every record. So we were playing more records per hour than came in.
Yeah.
That was a Boudreaux.
Boudreaux was taught me how to EQ with the very little toys that we had in that production room.
He was really good. He was always up to some kind of trickery, but really good stuff.
Remember the pattern change trick that he used to? Then he had me do it too. The Mamas and Papas Monday had a pause at the end of it. We made a 2-punch card of it, and at the pattern change time, the cart would stop, make the pattern change, bingo, and then come back on again where the record would continue. And you or Ron Smith, I don't know which one of us used to call, when are you going to make the damn pattern change? Just did. No, I was listening. I didn't hear it.
Don, you might not know this, but one time I was in the production room and Al stuck his head in and I was adjusting that. It was like a blue-gray face equalizer with dials.
Yeah, Langevin. That's all we had.
And Al told me, he goes, Don Elliot used to sleep with that thing.
Yeah, 2 clicks to the left and 3 to the right. And then you'd record at 15 with equalizer on low speed, 7.5 to bring up the high end because it screwed up the curve. It would be crisper on the air. We did that to the promos.
He thought he was the only guy who ever heard of Peter Best. He had a love affair with Peter Best.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, David Rolnick, Private Stock Records.
You made so much fuss over him.
Oh, and I ended up, we had hundreds of those albums. Did we give some away? You know who the promotion guy was on that?
Huh.
Oh God, I thought he was going to be the next Manson. Tony Alamo. That's the guy. Yeah.
Al, were you responsible for the famous Kfxm 59 jingles?
Yes. I did all of them. But the best ones were the ones I did in Hollywood with a big part of the Les Brown Band and the Johnny Mann Singers. And I got a story for that too. I made a case for KFXM, KUO, KEO, and also for the Bill Drake station in Fresno. And so I went there, and it was only, so many tracks there were supposed to be. So, but I had them all written long. And so they all could be cut into pieces and be all complete unto themselves, musically and lyrically. And so I got about, I don't know, probably 60 tracks for each station out of what was supposed to be only a few tracks for the money. And we did that at Western or at Sunset. And okay, here it comes. Chester McCowan was the guy who was producing
Oh
this
my
stuff.
God, it's Chester McCown?
And
The
little thief carpetbagger from Texas.
Yeah,
The little guy in that old beat up 61 Cadillac. I mean, it was all rusty. And I say, "You still driving that beater around?" He said, "It's a Cadillac, man." And he'd have these cigars and he'd chew them. And every time Howard would come in, he'd find Chess and they'd trade cigars and so on and sit around and chew on those nasty things. And so anyway, we got so much overtime at the studio beyond, way beyond what we were supposed to do. And Chess was getting a little nervous about it, and Howard was getting nervous. Well, it turns out we should have gotten nervous because Chess didn't pay the bill for anything. The studio, the bands, the singers, nobody. So we took the tapes to Decca, Alco Records on Santa Monica. It was Coral, Brunswick, and a bunch of other labels that were made there. And so they had the tapes reproduced so we could take them to the stations. But they wouldn't release them until we paid the bill. So now Howard and I were responsible for it. So I had this idea. I knew where the tape were. So I got a box, a big Ampex box, exactly like the box that the tapes were in. And I had them in the bag. And I went in, and Howard wouldn't, you chicken shit, he wouldn't go in with me.
Of course.
So I went in, and I told whoever was in charge there, that I'd like to listen to the tapes and get some ideas, and I think I can come up with the money for it if they're what I think they are. So I have to listen. So he gives me the tape. He said, "Here, you can go in this little studio and listen." And I went in the studio, and I put the other tape on the tape machine, put the original in the box. And then when I gave it back to him, he said, "Yeah, okay." And I had the original with me. I went out in the car, and Howard, and I said, "Gun it, Howard. I got the tapes." And he's going, like a bad man. And so we went to another studio and had them all dubbed up for all the stations. Never paid a nickel for them.
It's like the theft of the Queen's necklace out of the Louvre. Switching the jewels.
Al, was your office at Sunset and Vine Street in the tower? Is that where you were?
On 16th floor, right across from where
KKDJ.
Yeah, KKDJ.
Same floor, wasn't it?
Yeah, right across the hall.
It was his office.
Oh,
Yeah.
I worked there. Okay. And
Yeah.
there was a rumor that they put an antenna on the roof and you had a rotary motor so you could aim it to try to listen to Kfxm or Kfxm or KDO at the time.
Well, part of that's true, but yeah, we did. And it wasn't rotating. We just got it fixed so we could hear Kfxm. I mean, we put a power amplifier on it, and it just barely hit. We had the wire coming into the station.
Did you get the wire through the window? That's something.
Yeah, that was what we used when Kennedy was assassinated. We heard it there, and the radio we heard on the television, and the stations were just rocking their asses off like nothing ever happened. And so I called all of them and said, go find the slowest, sweetest elevator music record you can find, and just keep playing it over and over again, or get all of the ones you can find. They were just going to continue playing rock and roll.
Wow.
I tell you, the contest that I had on the impromptu. Well, first of all, one of the miracles that I did was get a billboard on the freeway in San Bernardino long after they shut the billboards off. And I got a billboard, the big KDUO Kfxm full 48-foot billboard. We used to call them stem winders. It took a lot of maneuvering and a lot of political stuff, but I got it. So at KDUO on one side and Kfxm on the other side, and we had a big cutout at the top. You know how they extend the edge of the billboard up on the ends by about 10 feet? And
Sure.
They call them cutouts. And so it was how Kfxm on the logo at that time was smaller at the left side and it got big toward the end. So the M was on the cutout. So there was a big storm. And it blew that whole last section of the billboard off that had the whole M on it. And it fell down on 3 or 4 Kennedy Cadillacs and just wrecked the shit out of them. But then I thought, wait. So I went over, had to help get the board, and we hit it. And then I went on the air with the contest. Where's the M? Just bam. And it went for a long time. So we had the location of it in the Bank of America in Colton in a vault, and so that nobody could cheat the contest. and so that's what we added. We always added that to always back. And we used to always guarantee our contest, our large money contest, insured through Lloyd's of London. It was always a part of it. We always got insurance. You could buy that kind of insurance, for just a very short time for that kind of money for pennies.
I've always wondered this, and somebody brought it up to me. I remembered, what if when FM got big, you had switched KFXM and put it on KDUO? What do you think would have happened?
We talked about that. Howard wouldn't do it. I wanted to call it duophonic stereo, KDUO.
Yeah.
You wouldn't hear of it.
For KFXM FM.
You know what that DUO used to mean?
No.
It was owned by a church. And DUO was the do unto others. And that's where the colonists came from. And I found that Box Springs Mountain, 619 acres up there, that whole mountaintop, I found out that it was an escrow. One of my fans, longtime fan, Jackie DeMabier, I think her name was, her mother's a real estate agent. And she called me, she said, don't you guys have something to do with Box Springs? I said, yeah, we have a station up there. She said, do you know it's being sold? I said, no. What could happen when somebody buys the property where your antennas are? So I told Howard about it, and so we went to work. We managed to get the lady who owned the property. She was the wife of the late sheriff of Riverside County who owned the property. And she was selling it to another party. Statute of limitations is gone. We got it busted out of escrow, and we made an offer for it. But one of the things is not so much the price of it, but Howard offered that lady $1,000 a month for the rest of her life.
Wow.
In addition to the $90,000 that she wanted like $60,000. He says, no, I'll give you more. I'll give you 90. So we went to the Bank of America in Colton, and I signed the check because I was executive vice president. I was an officer. And I signed a check for $90,000 to buy the mountain. And I thought sure that eventually that was going to be mine. And somehow or other, Howard, stuff he always said, oh, you guys got a job with me for the rest of your life. Just, just be good. And somehow or other, I thought that since I was the one who promulgated that ruse and got the property and got it all handled and so on, that eventually I'd have some interest in it. He fired me and Bob Bonnell on Valentine's Day, 1981, at the Holiday Inn. Because let's go over and have some coffee. Okay, we're sitting there, and he says, Bob, Al, you're fired. He just didn't know how to say it. And I know now that he was showing his onset of Alzheimer's at the time. He'd call Bob Bonnell Al. He'd call me Bob Bonnell, and he just did that all the time. So he was starting to have troubles, and so that's what I got for. And then I went back after he died, and Ruth at the funeral said, "I'm going to call you." I said, "Yeah, okay. If you need any help, I'll be happy to help you." And so she called me and offered a job. But Downey Huey was the manager, but he had run that station down to zero income in the time he was there. And so he hired me. Ruth hired me to build a new studio because Howard and I were talking about building a new studio, and he's going to have me do it. And so that was the reason, supposedly, why I went back to Kfxm. And then she fired Downey, and I was the manager.
Al, did you do much in San Diego, or was that all Sonny Jim Price?
Jim Price was he just walking through the place. That's all he did. He got to be really, really close to Howard. And Howard used to always say, "What do you know? What do you hear, Jim?" And they were pretty pally. And so Jim was the one who shot me out, was getting the job at Cayman, because what's his name, the program director, Jacobs. Ron Jacobs had already hired me for the job when I was in Hollywood. And Jim Price shot me down. I don't know what he ever had against me. Oh, I know, because I was in charge of the station and he didn't like it.
Who was running San Diego? Who was the That's where I first met Shotgun Tom. He was an intern for Ray Willis, of all people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Small world. So much history. I'm trying to absorb everything you guys are telling me. It's just...
How big was that station in San Diego, Al? The station in San Diego, did it have a really great signal?
No, the signal wasn't bad, but it didn't cover all the outlying area. And one thing about it that most people don't know, that 910 is a shit frequency.
Right.
Because that's the frequency that the
Superhit radio.
Yeah, that's where the beat comes from for the radio. For all that spectrum.
455 times 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would whistle a lot, and it was tough to tune in.
Yeah, it was hard because you had to stay so close into the channel. I mean, right on the money. Otherwise, you'd be bleeding into other stations.
Besides being in El Cajon.
Yeah.
It was an AM. It wasn't an FM.
AM.
It was AM, right? Okay.
It wasn't 90 Wonderful. It was 90.
Well, you know what? But we did beat the pants off of KCBQ, and we were holding our own until KGB changed. And who worked for us there is Don Bowman.
Oh, yeah.
Don, he went to KFWB. Don McKinnon. Just the greatest jocks on the planet.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear those little Old Man and the Boy Halloween tapes?
No.
Where he knocks on the door. It's a "Twick or tweet, mister, twick or tweet." And big voice is Mel Hall, opens the door, you hear the door open, and he says, "Oh, get lost, kid." And they start arguing back and forth, and it just turns, it was hilarious.
I remember that now that you said
They made a clean version and a X version. I didn't know. Guess what? We were so anxious. Every time we got a tape from them, we'd put it on the air. I didn't know there were two on there, and I played the bad one on the air.
Of course.
God, it was so bad. I mean, every swear word, every word you can't use today under any circumstances was in there.
You never got nailed for that?
Nah.
Well, Tullis and Hearn would not be remembered if it wasn't for Al Anthony.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
I was at KGBS and I was in Beverly Hills walking around, and Howard was across the street. And it had been about 10 years since I worked there. Hey, Dick, how you doing? How are you? And I go, Howard? He says, yeah, Howard, tell us. And I was shocked that he knew who I was. That really blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know?
I got to tell you about the Snake Man. You guys know about the Snake Man promotions we did?
Is this where he's buried in the earth?
Yeah.
I was a child and I went there to see.
Yeah? In San Bernardino?
Yes.
Because we did it first in San Bernardino at Bob Winkett's Chrysler dealer, and then we did it in Bakersfield, and then we did it in San Diego. 30 days each one. This guy claimed that he was an Indian chief from a long ago tribe, and we paid him $3,000 each month to go in the hole for 30 days. He had boa constrictors, rattlesnakes, cottonmouths. I mean, every kind of badass snake there was down in there. It was a 6-foot grave, 6 feet deep, 6 feet long. And we used to put his food down to the top of the cage in a bucket. And then we used the same bucket for the poop and stuff, and we'd haul it back up again. But
it was something to see.
It was. And, you had to make a contribution to the March of Dimes or something to come and see it. And people would look at it because it was gross. Well, the truth of the matter is, he said he was immune to snake bites. You can't get immune to snake bites. So I caught him a couple of times. I'd go by there in the middle of the night, and he'd be in there milking the rattlesnakes in a tube. And that's what he did. So they bit him from time to time. Truth of the matter is, none of those snakes were any more interested in him than he was in them. But they all looked there and they all slithered around and they looked fierce. But the funniest part, Howard always thinks he's going to be screwed by some con man. And he does. He's the easiest guy to con in the world. So anybody come along with a story, that's why he hired so many badass guys like John Stone and Dave Franzen and all these guys. Anyway, so he was shipping them up in crates, and so we sent them over to the transmitter building until we were ready for the promotion, until we dug the hole. So Howard wanted to see the snakes. So we took him over to the transmitter building. And he says, well, I got to see that snake move. He says, that some bitch, they'll be dead. And I don't want to be screwed out of that. I want to see it move. So we took one of the slats off the top of the cage that had the boa constrictor in it. And he's looking at him. He says, that some bitch is dead. That some bitch is dead. I got screwed. And the guy said, no, he's fine. He says, well, just poke him or something. So he gets a broom and he pokes him. And the snake, about all 7 or 8 feet of him, goes right through that hole, right straight up in the air. This whole length of him straight up in the air. Howard saw him. The last time I saw him, he went out the door. He was running across the golf course, and I think he broke the speed of light doing it. I never saw a guy run so fast in my life, because he's like a pear anyway.
It was a great promotion. I talked my mom into driving 30 miles to see that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Did you ever meet Dave McNamee, the guy that worked for before you?
No, no, I
I
never
think he
did.
came through one time.
Oh yeah,
He-
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I
He
did.
was national PD for Sonderling, and Sonderling and State Mutual held the note on KISS AM. And he was the national PD, and he's the guy that put me into KISS AM when we changed it to top 40, trying to get rid of, there was some funny business going on, some trades that weren't on the log. And we're supposed to go in and Xerox all the funny business to get existing management out and change the format. That's there's a book. God. But what do I recall? 3 months, we had a 12.6 against KHJ on KISS AM, 1,000 watts, low power at night. I think it's 5 during the day. I don't remember now. But God, all these things, that one thing that leads to another, and the interconnection and the revisiting. I mean, Jhani and I never worked together at Kfxm at the same time. In fact,
You and I, we never worked together. At the
yeah,
same
that's
time.
funny. I wanted to work for Coast when I was in Orange County. I wanted to come back, and John said, "We're staffed up." I said, "I'll keep you in mind." And we didn't talk too much. And then somehow David Hall got involved. He needed somebody at KFI. And I had, John, I think a nice letter from you telling me there wasn't anything going on, no openings at the time. And I had it in a frame right next to my sign-in letter at KFI when I joined you through with both stations. It was kind of just a little lag there. The timing wasn't quite right. I had to slide the timelines together like editing. Right.
And I followed you, Don, at K-Rock 1500. And
that's
Al,
funny.
you were at 1500 for a short period, weren't you?
Yes, yeah, but it was back in the Stone Age. We rattled rocks together on KBLA.
Oh, no kidding. Was Big
Yeah.
G there then? Jim Carson?
That was when the city owned it entirely, and they weren't operating it; they were just selling time to brokers.
I bought time when I was 16 years old there. I bought half hours and hours on the weekend.
Yep.
You were?
When it was in the park, and Vic Groupie,
Big G.
yeah, Vic G, he was my engineer.
Huh.
Jim Carson, right. So that's how I started in radio. That was the first place I cracked a mic.
You know what? I got 2 stories to tell you. One about KBLA and one about Irwin Zucker. He was so obnoxious at times in the way he did his promotion. He'd get right in your face and hand you the records and make you commit that you're going to play them. Don McKinnon. When Don McKinnon died, he was at the funeral hitting up on all the disc jockeys, giving them records, promotion records. Believe that?
Yes, that's the true story.
And okay, back to KBLA. A wrestler in LA who was well known at the time. He was called the Raven. He wore a black hooded mask all times. I never saw him, but he had the all-night show every night. And so when I was going to college at LACC and LA State, I used to go hang around with him just because I wanted to be around radio, like many guys do. And so finally he said, see, you like the radio stuff? Why don't you take a couple of shifts for me sometime? I said, well, that's why I'm here. So what he would do, he'd get together with a gal, they'd met on the air or whatever like that, and then he'd go and see her. So even if I was already there, fine. If not, he'd call me from home at 11 o'clock at night. He said, hey, come on, do my show. And we were doing a live broadcast from a restaurant on Hollywood Boulevard at the Copper Kettle kind of place. Was right behind it, a place called Chef Herbie's. And he did the all-night show. So every time he would hook up, he'd come and do his show. So I used to say to everybody at that time, when the Raven got laid, Al got paid. So that's my adventure. Oh, and I played for the first time ever in LA, Platter's record.
Wow.
A promotion guy from was it Mercury? Yeah, Mercury. came and hung with me at night. And so he used to come a couple of times, and I played. And I became good friends with Buck Ram. And I got the Platters their first nightclub gig in Bakersfield at something like the Crystal Palace or something like that. And that's how I got to be close with Buck Ram.
Al, with the Supremes, remember when they first got started, you took me backstage with you to talk to him and you wanted to give him some advice. And the little one, I can't remember the names, long day. And you put your arm around her and you said, "Hey, you guys are going to be big. And I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to start saving your money. Don't blow it and have somebody take care of you." Remember that? You were advising them to be real careful because you thought they were going to be big stars, and be careful, make sure you save your money and get it coordinated. I never forgot that.
Yeah, you know who opened for the Supremes when they played in Riverside? Michael Jackson.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh,
Goodness.
Wow. We had, the Swing Auditorium. I forgot about those. When I think the only time you had me bring anybody out on stage was the Stones, and I was scared to death. I ran out and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones," or something. Came back in, and the Beach Boys, weren't they also on stage with Chuck Berry? Can you remember for sure?
They might have been, but go to the Beach Boys. I was the first one to play Beach Boys on the radio. And how that happened is I used to have Make It or Break It on the air. And I had a bunch of shellac records there. And I'd have them vote. So I'd play a couple of new records and I'd have them Make It or Break It. And they'd call. And the Beach Boys, he used to bug me to play it. And I said, well, no, not yet. Because nobody was playing the record yet. I had them free at the barn at one of my hops. As a matter of fact, several times. They came and played for free. You know what the kids would do when they tried dancing to them? They said, "Where the hell did you get these guys? They can't even keep a beat." Because you know that Hal Blaine is the drummer for all the records they made as the beat. But one of the Wilson boys, I forgot which one it is. Yeah, and he was the drummer, and he couldn't play drum for shit. So none of that Beach Boy stuff that you heard them do later on was really done anywhere with just the Beach Boys.
They did have loud amps, though. That's where I was going with the Chuck Berry thing. Chuck Berry came out with this little amp, but it weighed skinny little guy, Chuck, and he's carrying this thing out, and he almost dropped it once. And one of the Beach Boys says, "Chuck, you'll never fill the auditorium with that thing. Take one of our amps." I said, "No, man, I got it. Just don't worry about it. I got it." And they kept insisting they use one of the Beach Boys amps. Chuck plugged this little thing in like this, and I thought the roof was going to come down. Nobody ever knew what was inside it, but it just was about a 12-inch speaker, but it just carried it. It was amazing.
you want to tell the story about the tiger, Al?
Yeah.
Should be lions and tigers and oh my. Right.
His lion is out. Okay. Tiger story. I get a lot of laughs out of this when I tell it. And people always say, "Tell us a tiger story, Al." Okay. Everybody, heard about us with a live tiger. And so we got a lot of publicity in all newspapers and all media everywhere in Southern Cal. And so I think it was Joe Pine wanted to have the tiger on his show. So Al Barnett told me he was going to take the tiger in to the show, and he said, "Can I borrow the station wagon, the one with the tigers all over it, and unit number 59." So I had the car. I used to get a new car every 6 months from Bill Ellis because it was leased by the bank and floored by the bank, and then I'd switch out for another one every 6 months. and traded out for advertising. And so that was instead of pay from Howard. So that was one of the things. So he decided he wanted to go. He got the Tiger in the car, and he went. And he was on the show, and I saw the show. It was really, really good. The Tiger was as docile as could possibly be, and just a real sweetheart. So after Al gets back, he told me, well, he locked up the car and he left it at the station. And I had to turn the car in to Bill Ellis about 3 days later. So the car was locked up, and it was pretty warm December, sun shining pretty bright. So I went to pick up the car, and I was supposed to go to a party that night and then to take the car in the next day. So I got in the car and I almost fainted. I never smelled anything like that in my life because the Tiger pooped inside, and he was loose in the back end of the station wagon, and he ran from side to side, top to bottom. There was Tiger shit everywhere. I mean, the whole inside of that car was Tiger poop. So I was just leaving the station right at the end of the day. I thought, God, I can't stand the smell of this, and I had to go to this party. So I called Noreen, and I said, Noreen, you got any kind of deodorant in there, something I can do? She said, no, I don't have it. I said, don't you have anything? She said, well, I have some perfume. I have Chanel No. 5. I said, let me have it. So she brings it out there, and I sprayed it all over everywhere in the car. I must have used up the whole bottle. And so what did it do? It didn't cover the stink. Now it was the smell of Tiger poop and Chanel No. 5. And it was colder than hell that night. And I was dressed in my suit. So I had to have my head sticking out the window with the heater on, and that stink permeating and so on. And I drove all the way to the party like this. So the next day, I took the station wagon and dropped it off at Bill's lot. And Bill was out of town for the holidays too. He didn't get back for a few days. And one day I get this call. Al? Yeah. He said, Bill. What's the matter, Bill? He said, you son of a bitch. What the hell did you do with my car? We couldn't clean it up. We had to burn the goddamn thing. And well, he had to destroy the car because there was no way that Tiger poop was over every inch of that car. And so it's a really funny story. And I just relive it every time I tell it, and I can still smell it.
And even farmers would cover that. We've seen a few things because that one.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, anybody else? How about?
You sent me to Hollywood with Tom Franzen, had an afternoon movie, a talk show on Channel 4. NBC owned it. And I went down there with Al with the Tiger. I don't remember how we got down, and there was no problem like you had. And took him on the air. He was full grown. He was 500 pounds and pretty well behaved. I don't know, knowing Al Barnett, he might have given him some kind of drug or some tranquilizer because Al wasn't beyond that. And I did this interview live on TV in the afternoon in Los Angeles for Kfxm 590. And I couldn't get over how easy and relaxed I was without having to run the controls of a radio board and everything. I just sat there and talked to this guy who was a great interviewer, of course.
Like now, huh?
I'm sorry, yeah, like now. And talked about the radio station. So that was something I'd forgotten about till you mentioned your other experience.
Well, you had the ostrich races.
I had the what?
Would you have races with the ostrich?
Oh, the ostrich race.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite.
Oh, you bitched about that.
Oh, man. It was then a silky, and the ostriches were pulling the silky, and you had a broom, and it was counterintuitive. if you wanted the ostrich to go left, you had to put the broom on the right side so they couldn't see with that eye. So it was terrifying, exciting, fun, and quite an unforgettable experience.
Anybody remember the dunk tank? I think, Don, you were there.
What was it called?
The dunk tank at the showgrounds.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you know what you guys, I wanted to tell something on it. You know what you guys did to me? You wouldn't go in the tank because at the time the show started in February, and it was about 30 degrees every
it's
night.
crazy.
And we were there for 11 nights. And I did almost every single night
Oh,
without the help from the big disc jockeys.
I remember the beginnings of it. I think they'd hit me every time though. I mean, you'd get back up and they'd hit you again.
Oh, yeah, yes, because
Yeah.
when we started, they were using tennis balls, and you couldn't dunk it by hitting that little thing. So I brought out baseballs, like softballs, and they got it every time.
You're the one. Right.
We had one more thing, the story of us having a remote at the Orange Showgrounds when Mr. Custer was a hit record, and I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, he came and we did a promotion with him, and he was there for a few days. He came to the remotes, and I had my artist who used to help me with my TV show do a lot, and he made signs, KDEO that way so many miles, and Kfxm Kathy that many miles, and so on. And he painted these buttes with Indians on them. You know how you always seen it in those days, they'd be ready, they attack, they'd be standing on the butte. Well, he stuck them on the sides. And so every time you look there, you see the Indians standing straight out from the sides of it. Anyway, so that was a remote. Since I've been here in Tennessee, I've seen many, many remotes. You know how they have a remote here? They send a truck out here with the call letters on it, and an intern open the table and then stand there, and there's no disc jockeys, no nothing on the air, no records, and they're playing the music through the speakers. That's what the remotes are here. Not like the remotes we used to have.
And you're lucky 4 people are standing around the table, right?
Yeah, right. I half the time I never see anybody, and they charge a lot of money for it, which is crazy. I don't know why, but that time we all dressed. I went to Hollywood, Western Costumes in Hollywood, and I rented some union uniforms. And so all the jocks, when they appeared at the remotes, we played the records there too, and actually on the air. And we crammed those people in there. We finally got thrown out of the Orange Show because nobody could walk in any direction, because in every direction you looked, your people just piled up, and it was a fun promotion. And Larry Verne, he is a funny guy, so he was dressed up in one too, and I guess I'm trying to remember. Was that San Bernardino or Bakersfield? Because my girls from my TV show, I used to have 4 delightful looking little cherubs dressed in skimpy little Indian costumes, with the frayed bottoms and so on, and they were something to see. But anyway, it was really, really a great promotion. I really enjoyed that.
Was it like the typical dance TV show? Did you host it? What was the format of it? Like Dick Clark's?
In the station, in the markets where I was against Dick, I beat him in the ratings.
Wow.
My show was really good because I had contests on the show. You never see that happen on a TV show. And then so they mail in, and I got stacks and stacks like this of postcards when they used to have postcards, and they used to enter them with postcards. And every kind of, something to do with a record. I had guests on every show. And I had the champs, as a matter of fact, and a lot of different artists on the show. I got a bunch of pictures of them. And the guy, Harv Pennington, used to help me out a lot. He did a lot of my photos for me, and he did a lot of my artwork for me, and he did just a lot of special things for me. And he was a funny guy, and he got work at one big studio in LA, and I guess he worked there the rest of his life. He's still alive.
Well, I have a closing comment that I'd like to make, and I just appreciate all that you did and the playground you built for us and the toys you gave us to play with. And it was almost, in retrospect, I never thought of it this way, but looking back, like being in a fraternity house and you were the house father. And we were just sort of set loose, do your thing, boys. You kept us rounded up somewhat, but you weren't a real strict father. You sort of let your imagination go, emote, contest. You gave us lots of ideas to do things, and it worked. So thank you, Al. And I hope that we get to do this again soon. And I'm sure we'll be talking on the phone through the coming days.
Yeah, we got some work to do. So, and thanks so much for all that. I really appreciate it. Love you, Dick.
Dick said it really well. And I just want to say what an honor it was to work for you. And there aren't enough thank yous to put together to relate to you how grateful we all are for what you've done for us.
Well, I appreciate that. And we did that for you instead of money.
It was worth more than
That's
that.
true.
And every time you guys would ask for a raise, hey, I did see the ratings on my show. My show is great. I was number one in the slot. I said, that's good. Well, can I get some more money for that? Sure. Good. I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you extra money for being in the position right now, but you have to agree with me that the next time they go down by a single point, I take all that money back again. How's that? I'll be happy to sign a contract with you right now. Nobody ever took me up on it.
Funny. That's funny. Al, you were a very rewarding person in those times too, because you slipped a few trades my way that kept me quite happy. And I going back to before I met you, you were great to me on the phone, on the way, taking your word for it that I was hired and I drive across the country. How many people did that? And they'd show up and they'd no job that day. But Al came through, and I'm coming through. I think I had to call you the night before from Flagstaff. I opened the door to the hotel and the snow was higher than I could see. I couldn't get to this little MG I was driving in. And I pull up the next day over coming down the hill to San Bernardino. I see all these lights. I think, God, this is bigger than New York. This is bigger than
Well,
LA. San Bernardino, lights as far as I could see. And the next morning, where are the buildings?
All the way to LA. And that was my first great feeling when I saw those lights.
But bringing me on with these guys too, that I cherish very much, is all of you, and Al and Jhani and Dick, and
yeah, I love.
You're an enabler, Al. You taught me so much, and thank you for the lessons all along, and which also put me, of course, working ultimately with Jhani. So just recently.
Thank you. I'm proud of all of you. The control room just tells me that we're running out of time. Certainly not out of stories. And I want to thank you guys, Don, John, and the guy in the middle, Mr. Lyons, for being here. And I'm so proud of you guys for the jobs you did and the places you went. And we just have to have more stories and more things, because it's a rich pile of memories that will never be duplicated and probably never appeared anywhere before. So I look forward to it. So you guys want to come again?
You bet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It was a warm summer night that I saw